I just wanted to give a quick intro to this video because there isn't really an intro. So I thought I would just start off by saying this is about your knees caving in during a back squat and when it is something to worry about and why it happens sometimes in higher level athletes. So hope you enjoy it, and let's get right into it.
And Tian Toomey wasting no time setting the bar for the rest of the field.
So watching this again in slow-mo, as you'll see on the way up, and you probably already saw, her knees almost touch each other, or they might actually touch each other right in the middle. Is this a problem? So when I say problem, I mean, is this something that needs to be corrected, either for performance purposes or injury risk reduction purposes, or is it okay that this happens? And so next we're going to look at a clip of Tia talking about what happened when she did try to correct the knees coming in.
I was fixing my knee, so if they were able to come in just slightly, I'd stop, take it back, and try and practice that. I actually hurt myself and I think I overtore, overstretched a muscle in kind of my pelvic region, and so I don't really know what it was specifically, but I went and seen someone, and they're and I got a few views on it because not everyone's knows 100%. And so what he said was, because I was over, you're forcing the natural movement patterns or something like that. I don't remember the correct terminology, but I was oh man, that's crazy. So when I stopped, had some time off, recovered, and then I know it sounds silly because I thought it sounded silly at the start, but as soon as I stopped pushing my knees out, the pain went away. It's so funny,
So one of the most common injuries in the knee that is associated with that knee cave is an ACL injury. So the ACL is a ligament in your knee, and typically it's injured when somebody lands from a jump and their knee turns in. So a lot of coaches and clinicians get worried when they see that knee cave on the squat because it looks exactly the same as that injury pattern of an ACL when somebody lands from a jump. So a great study that I found looked at the correlation between that knee cave during a squat, a 1-rep max back squat, and the knee cave when landing from a jump. So what they were trying to find is, if we see it in a back squat, does it predict it also happening when somebody lands from a jump, thus predicting an ACL injury? And so another key point to that is that typically when landing from a jump and we notice that knee cave, we're thinking, okay, this person has weak hips. So if the two are correlated, you could also sort of tease out the fact that, yeah, okay, it happens in the jump, it also happens in the squat, they're correlated. So the fact that it's happening in a jump shows that this person has weak hips. And the fact that it's happening in a back squat also shows that this person has weak hips, because they're very highly correlated to each other. So was there a correlation? So I want to highlight a couple of the figures in this study to illustrate what they found. So let's look at the jump first. So they wanted to see if hip strength correlated to the knees staying out in a jump. So higher hip strength means knees are going to stay out in a jump. They're not going to cave in. And they actually did find about a moderate correlation here. So 0.5 is moderate. High would be anything above, I think 0.8, 0.7 or 0.8 is a high correlation. So here we're seeing that, and just to orient you to the figure a little bit, any data point that is below this line, this x-axis of numbers, means knee cave, and then any point above it means knees are staying outward, okay? So you want to see, as hip strength goes up or goes to the right, more data points are above the line, or the knees are staying out more often, Okay, so generally we are seeing that here. So we could say that the strength of your hip abductors is moderately correlated to your knees staying out when landing from a jump. Let's move on to another figure, and we'll look at the squat and see if we see anything similar. So the line here looks much different, and you can see the correlation is very low. And so they looked at squat strength, so how high your 1 rep max was on your back squat, and if that predicted the knee cave when landing from a jump. So clearly it doesn't. So having a very high back squat doesn't necessarily mean that your knees will stay outward when landing from a jump. So in conclusion, the hypothesis was proven wrong, or the hypothesis was not proven, meaning that the knee cave that's happening in a back squat does not predict the knee cave that's happening in a jump. Thus, knee cave in a back squat does not predict ACL injury or knee injury. And the knee cave in a back squat does not necessarily mean you have hip weakness that's going to cause that knee cave in the jump. Okay? So why is that knee cave happening then? If the hips aren't weak, why would that happen? So obviously Tia is an amazingly strong athlete, and I would not ever think her hip abductors were weak. And so it can be kind of puzzling when, you think like, okay, this is a sign of hip weakness, but this amazing athlete has the same thing. So is it a sign of hip weakness? And obviously the study that we just looked at sort of debunks that. And so another study here took a bunch of data from studies where they looked at the muscle activation around each joint that contribute to a squat motion. So the hips and the knees primarily. And what they found was that on the way up, or during the ascent of the squat, the adductor magnus muscle was contributing, let me make sure I got the number right, more than 50% of that hip extension moment. Meaning, so if you're in the bottom of a squat, your hips are flexed. When you come up, your hips are extended on the way up, or they are extending. So your adductor magnus is doing over 50% of that, okay? And so meaning, it's being recruited a lot at higher loads to overcome that weight. So primary function of adductor magnus is it's an adductor, so it pulls your knees together. That's number one. And number two is it extends your hips. So could it pull your knees together towards each other as your hips are extending? Absolutely. And so that's likely what was happening, or what does happen in higher level athletes when they're squatting super heavy loads. So when we think about when to intervene with this knee cave, when you think about the difference between a back squat and landing from a jump, you have two different types of muscle contractions going on. So you have an eccentric contraction, meaning the muscles are controlling a lowering phase during a landing. They're controlling your body lowering towards the ground. And then in a back squat, you have a concentric contraction, meaning the muscles are fighting gravity and pushing upwards. Okay, so absorbing against gravity versus fighting gravity and pushing up. Okay, two different styles of muscle contraction. So for me, as a clinician / coach, I would intervene if I saw that knee cave occurring during the descent of a squat. So when somebody unracks the bar, they're about to go, they're squatting down into the hole and their knee cave is occurring right away, that's something that I need to probably address. But if it's happening only at heavy loads when they're coming up from a squat, I probably wouldn't really worry about it too much.